Angron and Sanguinius will face each other at the Siege of Terra. This is big. This is new lore now, which puts probably two of the greatest Primarchs in terms of fighting against each other. One, a demonic Primarch, and one, of course, the Angelic Angel. So let's jump in, let's talk about this, let's talk about the ramifications of it, what potentially could happen, the fallout, all the things connected to this epic event that we're going to be getting in the next Siege of Terra book. As always, when it comes to the Siege of Terra, we will be talking about spoilers throughout the story so far, so if you haven't read it, if you're currently reading it and you don't want to be spoiled, then this is your first and only warning to leave the video right now. So over on the Games Workshop website, they posted an article dedicated to the upcoming Siege of Terra book, Echoes of Eternity. This is written by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. This is kind of like the second to last book now in the Siege of Terra series. That's unless they don't do any novellas in between this book, but it's basically Aaron's book and then Dan's book to end the Siege of Terra, and then that's it and there's no more Horus Heresy. That era is basically come to an end, and what an era it's been in storytelling, showing off the Horus Heresy, the Siege. It's quite emotional when you think about it. Now, in this article, it gives a brief overview what has been going on and what is happening and what basically this book is going to be covering. For example, it states that the Khan lies on the edge of death. Remember, in the last book, Khan fought Mortarion. Khan banished Mortarion with like his awesome sword skills, but in doing so, left himself open for Mortarion to strike a killing blow as well. We all thought Khan was dead, but he's not dead. He's on the edge of death. I'm sure there's something about Primarchs where they're not truly dead, but I'm sure that is another subject for another time. It goes on to say that Dawn is encircled, fighting his own war at the Badab Bastion. Guilliman will not reach Terra in time, it goes on to say. Bereft of his brothers, Sanguinius, the Angel of the Ninth Legion, waits on the final battlements, hoping to rally a desperate band of defenders and refugees. And basically, this is the legendary story now of Sanguinius holding the Eternity Gate more or less on his own against the entire Traitor Legion force. Now, we've all read the old lore about what happened at the Eternity Gate. Sanguinius stood there, he fought, and eventually Karbanda showed up, and he had this epic duel with Karbanda where he broke him over his knee, again casting him back into the warp. But I think now this is where we're going to see the big change. We're actually going to see Angron versus Sanguinius. And the reason why I think this is going to happen is because of this quote in the background from the article that confirms that Angron and Sanguinius are going to be fighting each other. It states, Terra faces more than mortal foes. The Great Angel and the Red Angel are ready to face each other at last. Angron, Lord of the World Eaters, has achieved immortality through annihilation. Now he leads the armies of the damned in wrathful tide, destroying all before them as the warp begins its poisonous corruption of Terra's very soil. Now, if you've been reading the Siege of Terra, you've probably already connected these dots, because when it comes to Angron, with him being unleashed upon Terra, it's plainly to see that nothing is stopping him. He is basically just a wrecking ball of blood, death, and hate. Custodes, the Imperial Guard, Space Marines, nothing can stop him and his blood crusade, except one individual, which of course is going to be Sanguinius. We're going to get that iconic battle of like the angel versus the demon, brother versus brother, the angelic one versus the one who has given himself over to damnation. It's absolute poetry in motion. But the big thing to add to this is then what happens with Karbanda. Was it Karbanda in the first place? Because we all know what goes on in the Horus Heresy. It's kind of like, you know, half-spoken truths and people's idea of the story, and it's passed down and it's filtered down to other great things that people like make it happen but didn't really happen. It's all hearsay and rumors kind of thing. So I'm thinking that maybe the rumors of, you know, Sanguinius fighting Karbanda at the Eternity Gate was always a mistake, and it wasn't Karbanda at all. It was actually Angron in his demonic form fighting Sanguinius. But then again, maybe that is completely wrong, and maybe there's like another little story within here. Again, I'm going down theory time now. Maybe Karbanda is at the Eternity Gate, and he also fights Sanguinius, but then Angron shows up, and then maybe Angron and Karbanda try and do like a 2v1. Maybe Angron and Karbanda have a little scrap between themselves. They are both, you know, now deities of the blood god, Khorne. Maybe they want to see who's the biggest, who's the bestest, kind of like an orc showdown, and they fight each other for the prize of taking on Sanguinius at the Eternity Gate. For me, this is one of those fandom moments where I always wanted to see the outcome, because I've always heard stories about Angron and his power and his brutality in terms of being a fighter. You know, he was brought up in the cages, you know, the nails in his head driving him to do insane things. And you have Sanguinius, the angelic angel, but, you know, we've always heard these stories of him being a wrathful angel. To see like his anger unleashed is something to bear witness to. It's so scary that you don't ever want to see again. So seeing these two characters now come together and actually fight it out, I think is going to be absolutely beautiful. Of course, we kind of know the ending. Sanguinius is always going to win the situation. Maybe he'll retreat off, fly off, or do whatever, but Sanguinius has to survive, because of course Sanguinius goes on the vengeful spirit, and that's where he meets his end at the hands of Horus. But I again have a little theory about this. I'm thinking that potentially this fight could be a setup to actually give Sanguinius a kind of a fair send-off on the vengeful spirit, because I think what could potentially happen is that Sanguinius fights Angron. The duel is epic, it's magnificent, both are seriously injured, but of course Sanguinius overcomes it and he ends up breaking Angron, casting him back into the warp, let's say, and then Sanguinius then has to go to the vengeful spirit, and Sanguinius of course is not 100% when he actually comes up against Horus and fights him. This then gives us the story, or I'm sure some people say the excuse, that Sanguinius went down so easily against Horus because he wasn't at his 100%. We know Horus kills Sanguinius. We know this is going to happen. We know this is like the black rage that happens. I have a little bit of a theory again. Sorry, this video is full of theories that potentially maybe Sanguinius is the one that brings down the Emperor. I know you Blood Angel fans hate when I say this. He just completely gives himself over to like the black rage, chaos, whatever it is, and he just strikes anyone down in that throne room, and it's Sanguinius that basically brings the fall of the Emperor. And it's kind of ironic then, because we're celebrating Sanguinala every year over the Great Angel, and it was the Great Angel who technically brought the Imperium down. I know, that is just a far-fetched theory, but it would be epic if something like that actually did happen. I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. It should be out by September. Whatever happens in it, I'm sure it's going to be absolutely epic. Aaron's writing it. I've always stated, you know, my top 3 authors at Black Library are Chris Ray, Dan Abnett, and Aaron. Anything that they touch in the terms of Warhammer words, I'm always down for the ride, and I know it's going to be an emotional, absolutely roller coaster of an experience. So yeah, super looking forward to that. Hopefully we have a absolute epic duel of Sanguinius versus Angron, the angels fighting each other. Finally, this is what I have been waiting for. Anyway, Chaperonios, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this video as always. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, any theories of your own, post them down below. I love reading Warhammer theories. It's kind of the best like fandom thing that we have going for us, like all like these other scenarios which potentially could happen and everything cool like that. Anyway, enough waffling. Thank you once again. See you now. Have a great day, and bye-bye.